I'm going to read a little excerpt of some notes I wrote this morning from an excursion I took this week with this project in mind. In the empty field behind the dairy plant, the Johnson grass has finally died off for the season, making room for the native seed bank. It is mostly crowded out to give it another shot. The prairie coneflower is the most prodigious of those natives there and in the unmowed rights of way where it emerges through the Bermuda grass. Out for a midday run on Thursday, I found some that had already bloomed at the base of the on-ramp. Maybe not as good a sign, but who knows? The Anglo settlers gave that wildflower the name Mexican hat, and people still call it that, even though the sombreros have been almost entirely replaced by cowboy hats in these parts. The name encodes a complex history of diversity, coexistence, and colonization here at the edge of the borderlands, where the Blackland Prairie once ran like a sea of grass, from the north end of San Antonio to just south of the Red River. I found a big remnant of that prairie Thursday afternoon when I took advantage of a pause in the week to go take a look at a site I had often heard about but never seen. The prairie remnant probably wasn't really a remnant, but it was a prairie, an acre of insanely thick and tall Indian grass there at the intersection of two jammed up highways in the 7th fastest growing suburb in America. North of town, on the long 19 miles between Maynard and Taylor, there were no more remnants, just farms, even as you could see from the shape of the land that had once been covered in tall grass. I found the next one when I got to my destination, a corporate detention facility operated under contract with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Division of the Department of Homeland Security. The DMZ along its western edge has been allowed to go wild, and as I rolled up, I saw a bright yellow realtor sign cryptically admonishing me, "Do not feed." I saw no animal, but it made me wary of getting out to walk. If you saw it on some satellite map on your phone while looking for one of the nearby businesses, you could be forgiven for assuming the T. Don Hutto Residential Center is some kind of housing facility. And in a way, it is. It's a place where mothers and children who've been apprehended crossing the border without documentation are locked up pending their deportation or release. It's not hard to find. You can instruct your phone to take you right to the main gate. But when you see it for real, you realize how it's hidden in plain sight, a little outpost of dystopia on the wrong side of the tracks at the edge of America's hometown. Taylor is one of those suburbs that still feels like a small town, far enough into the rural quarters of the next county that a trip there feels a little bit like time travel. My friends who do location work for movies and television here call it their backlot, a museum quality specimen of pre-World War II Main Street with its vintage storefronts intact and full of life, lovely old homes occupied by smiling families and settler era farmhouses, often occupied by descendants of the people who built them. There's a sign at the main intersection that advertises the town motto, "Friendly as a Texan's smile." At the next corner, I saw one of those Texans drive off in his Route 66 ready 50s Corvette. I went looking for the mythical location of SST Records, the hardcore label of my 80s youth that moved here with its proprietor, Black Flag guitarist Greg Ginn, late during the second Bush administration. And found the address was a beautiful old post office from an era when that public service of the federal government was where you went to exchange handwritten messages with faraway friends. You can see why they used Taylor as the mythical Texas town of Friday Night Lights. But then you look at the list of other movies filmed there and there's something creepier going on. The Hitcher, The War at Home, Transformers, Age of Extinction, and 1997's Purgatory County. In a small Texas town, an emotionally unstable native son, Perkins, returns after a long absence to find that his brother, Dwayne, has been elected sheriff. Much to Perkins's shock, he also discovers that the ambitious and greedy Dwayne is having an affair with Perkins' wife, Liz. Perkins also learns that the family ranch has been turned into a failing emu farm and that his abusive, chain-smoking mother has passed away and left him only the family gun collection. The house where Leatherface lived in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is 13 miles north of Taylor and awaiting your visit. The Chamber of Commerce probably did not take the executives from Samsung there before they chose Taylor as the site of their new $17 billion factory to fabricate chips for 5G devices and artificial intelligences. Taylor is a town whose origin was as a railroad stop, and you can see how that land use structures the social landscape of the town, proving the truth of the all-American aphorism. The old downtown terminates at the big Union Pacific rail yard, where huge trains run through all day long. When I arrived, I saw 100 identical cars roll slowly by carrying loads of gravel east. Around the rail yard are old warehouses, most of them dedicated to the movement of grain and cattle, and one dedicated to eating the product. The businesses on the north side of the tracks are not as quaint as the ones on Main Street. Rundown hair salons, convenience stores, tattoo parlors, a cold storage meat locker with the sculpture of a big fat longhorn steer over the front door, a truck mod shop with a Punisher decal on the mailbox. Another road runs parallel to the tracks on the south side, a rougher road, paved but unstriped, in the shadow of the highway overpass that lets people driving through avoid seeing that side of town as they go right over the tracks. There are more warehouses there, most of them newer Morton buildings, all of them behind high fences. There are old farms that come right up to the last blocks, one rising up as a hill, where the edge of town resolves into some Texas mirror of a Wyeth landscape. There are a bunch of empty lots, some of them marked on the map as municipal parks, but all of them fenced in and marked with big no trespassing signs, except for the little prairie where the mystery creature lives. In the field behind the private prison, the remains of this season's cotton crop lay on the ground like summer snow. There are a few residential blocks back in there, more ramshackle than the stately homes on the other side. One long block of little houses rich with Christmas decorations and familial decorations of Chicano identity looks out on the big empty lot where they have built a little ball field, behind which looms the prison. Driving by it in awe of the union of federal power and corporate capital in service of control of the land, you imagine it from the point of view of some kid who traveled here from Guatemala or Honduras with their family, a long and difficult journey in search of sanctuary, only to be taken by armed officers and transported here to this isolated compound, maybe in one of those windowless containers. I wonder if they can see the fields or hear the trains at night. Friday afternoon, I read a student's paper explaining how the rail line that passes in front of the detention center follows the path of an ancient trail that came up from Mexico and followed the line of springs that still flow in this long, thin zone where the Blackland Prairie marked the liminal space between the eastern plains and the arid west. A reminder of how against nature political borders are, concretizing the permanent settlement, indenture, and territorial exclusion of a species that was born to roam. When I made my second pass by the facility after touring the town, I saw a woman out on the prairie next to the prison. She was there with some big, weird white dog, a little scary, with food in her hand. When I looked at the photo later, I realized she was a volunteer for the local no-kill animal shelter, feeding a stray in the shadows of a prison where they lock up children. Next to that empty lot is another one with 3 scrubby mismatched trees and a cell phone tower. I remember the saying my friend in Tijuana coined 10 years ago this spring: border closed, network open. Thank you.